Hello, everyone. I've got a jingle. I have a jingle. I was listening back to last month's episode, available in your ears from all the usual podcast providers, and thought there's something missing. We need a catchy jingle. What's a podcast without a jingle? So I dropped a line to my old friend Dominic Curry. Dom has done all the music to my book trailers and unboxing videos, and he recently did the music to the short film my son made for his university dissertation, and he's just brilliant. And so I asked him if he'd be up for coming up for a jingle, and he was. And I said to him, can you just give me just a few notes? And he sent me, I think, 4 samples, and I couldn't choose, and they're all great. So each month we're going to have a different version of the same jingle, and he says he's going to send me more, including Halloween and Christmas ones. So shall we have another listen? Let's have another listen, shall we? There we go. Thank you so much. So Dom was working on the principle that the best theme tunes, you can sing the title. So if you want to hear the demo, here's the demo. Here's Dom doing the demo. So
for Mark Stay's Creative Differences.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dom. Thank you so much. Now, on to the main event. Welcome to Mark Stay's Creative Differences, a monthly live stream where I talk to writer friends about those little things that make a big difference to their craft and careers, in the hope that we can give readers some insight to the creative process and writers and other creative folks some practical advice they can actually use. I'm Mark Stay, author, screenwriter, and podcaster. And if you're joining us live, feel free to ask questions in the comments and take part in the conversation. Oh, and I should just say also, we're recording this on the day of my Aunt Marion's 80th birthday. And she's a best-selling author. Now, her autobiography, Dropping the Habit, got to either, I think, 2 or 3 in the Irish Times bestsellers. As you can tell, she used to be a nun. So if you're ever unsure what to get an author for their birthday, simply buy a dozen or so copies of their book and give it to your friends and family. And I'm in this one as too. Look me up. So happy birthday, Aunt Marion. 80th birthday. What an incredible life she has had. Now let's meet our special guest, L.J. Shepherd, who lives in Cardiff with her rescue cat Coral, who I hope will be making a cameo appearance this evening. Now, after graduating from Christchurch, Oxford, with a degree in English literature, LJ pursued a career in law. Laura began practicing as a barrister in 2017. Since then, she's prosecuted and defended in many jury trials in the Crown Court. And Laura is now a human rights barrister, instructed in high-profile public inquiries. And Laura is the author of The Trials of Lila Dalton, a terrific legal thriller with twists and turns that will keep you on the hook to the very last page. So, Laura, welcome to the Creative Differences podcast. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and happy birthday to Aunt Marion.
Thank you. Yes, I'll be seeing her tomorrow for a proper knees up. So yes, thank you, Laura. Thank you. Yes, people are leaving messages for my Auntie Marion. Like I say, Dropping the Habit, available from all good booksellers. I think it's still in print. Anyway, definitely the ebook is out there. So anyway, LJ Shepherd, welcome. Now, I've got lots to talk about with this book, this remarkable book here. I've got a copy here. One thing I did see, because I've been scouring your social media, and I saw that The Trials of Lila Dalton came out recently in the US and Canada on the same day that Oasis announced that they were reuniting. Now, first of all, can you ever forgive them for stealing your publicity thunder? And did it affect sales? Because like lockdown, everyone stayed at home that day. And more importantly, did you get tickets?
Well, yeah, I think I would be more forgiving at tickets, but I had one of those horrendous Saturdays sat in the queue, and then we got to, I think, maybe like 6 p.m. when they were like, if you're willing to spend £700, the two of you can go to see Oasis. No, they've got plenty of money. They don't need any more of mine. So yeah, we didn't get tickets, but and it's annoying as well because I live in Cardiff, so we'd have been able to go on night one, being the best chance we'd have had for being able to see an entire performance, or at least an entire song. So yeah, I will forgive them, not least because is why they got back together, so we can't be too cross at them for being greedy with ticket prices.
No, absolutely. Well, look, the paperback is out in February of Trials of Lila Dalton, so I'm hoping for nothing less than a Spice Girls reunion. So let's
me too.
so mark that in your diaries, folks. If you're not grabbing the hardcover or the ebook or the audiobook, then paperback is out in February. Now, what I want to talk about is the opening page of this book, and it just completely hooks you in from the very, very beginning. You've got a lawyer who looks up. She's in a courtroom. She can't remember why. The judge is waiting for her to answer a question. She can't even remember her name. I have to ask, Laura, has that ever happened to you?
Not exactly. It is, I guess, a little bit based on personal experience, in that the very first time I was prosecuting, I was probably about 25, so like really young when you think about it, to be prosecuting a crime in the Crown Court. And up until that point, I've done quite a lot in the magistrates' court, and you'll have people who are, you know, professional judges. They get paid to be there, and so they might look at you, but not that much, and they're not that interested, because ultimately it is their job. Whereas when you stand up and address a jury, suddenly you've got 12 people who are like, they're actually paying attention to you, they're listening, they're excited, they're like, what's this case going to be about? Is it going to be a murder? Is it going to be, no, it's going to be a fight in a pub. So they are actually interested in what you're saying. And so just having 12 people looking at me like this, and I counting on to tell them what it was going to be about and to lead them through the case, I just had this moment where I kind of froze. I didn't forget everything. It was all fine. I carried on. But it was a real like watershed moment where I sort of like graduated. I became a trial. So yeah,
how much preparation? I mean, obviously you have to prepare for something like that. You have to be completely in the moment and focus. Was there anything in life that prepared you for that? Had you done theatre? Had you been in a debating society? Anything like that? Because that must be, and you capture this, like I say, you capture this fear brilliantly in the opening chapter here. Was there anything you'd done in life that prepared you for that?
So you get quite a lot of training when you become a barrister. So you spend a lot of time doing something called mooting, where you have to debate judges and things. I did do amateur dramatics when I was a kid, but I don't think anything properly prepares you for it, because it's just the weight of responsibility which is the most scary thing. And the difficult thing about being a barrister and barrister. So every time you make a mistake, it's not just in quiet where you can address it, it's everyone's looking at you. So it was a really steep learning curve, but once you get past that, it becomes quite pantomime-ish in a way.
Now, the Trials of Lila Dalton is set on Assumption Island, which I'm hoping is a fictional island, and reviews have compared it to things like The Prisoner, which gives the novel an otherness to it. Was that always part of the plan?
Yes. So it just kind of came to me that I wanted to do something that was going to be a mashup of two genres. So I wanted it to be a legal thriller, meet something a bit speculative, a bit spooky. I just love those kind of films and books and television programs like Black Mirror, Shutter Island, where there's just this vibe to the whole thing, and Twin Peaks as well, something where just like weird stuff happens. I like all of that, and that was definitely what I was trying to capture.
Brilliant. Well, look, we've got a treat for you, folks. What I spotted again while stalking you on social media, Laura, is I noticed that you put your notebook up on Facebook, and you put this up on social media, and I find this stuff absolutely fascinating. This is the notebook where you started originally jotting down those first ideas. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share the screen. And look, listeners, if you're listening to this on audio, don't worry, we're going to read some of this stuff out, but you can always catch up with it on YouTube as well if you want to see the absolute specifics. Let's first just check everyone can see that. Okay, so it's going to be a bit small on the screen, so I'm going to read some of this out. So this is page 1, and it says there at the top, speculative legal thriller. And that word speculative, when we talk about fiction, we're talking about maybe science fiction-ish. So was that a genre that you were thinking, okay, that's the genre that I want to write in? Can you talk about that?
So when I had this idea that I wanted to write something high concept, but from the perspective, I just kind of was thinking around these ideas in my head. I had the idea of somebody standing up and not having any memories, and at the time I'd serve more speculative things. Again, I love Black Mirror. I love things like Sense8. There was a program on Channel 4 about 10 years ago called Utopia. And I just really liked all of that stuff. And the great thing about the mashup would be that I wouldn't have to be as tied down to reality if I was able to have this kind of spooky speculative element, because I could do things a bit outside of the box because it's thriller.
Absolutely. And you also quite, I mean, we can see there Black Mirror, Wayward Pines, Twin Peaks. There's Pleasantville, which is a movie that I absolutely love. People don't talk about that film enough. Inescapable Location. So yeah, this really was baked in from the very beginning as well. So let's go to the second page here. Questions I need to answer. What is the remote parochial town setting? What are the creepy things that the main character that tells the main character something is wrong? So this is you having a conversation with yourself as you're putting it together. So was this before you'd written anything, or had you tried writing and thought, actually, I don't quite know all this yet, let's go back into this?
This was before I started writing. So I was just having this sort of thing in my, all of these ideas sort of coming through. And then I was trying to sort of like think about the structure, think about how I would get from the point would be just that kind of 7-point structure, as it were. And I just realized that I just didn't have enough meat on the bones to be able to start thinking about it. And then I thought, right, before I think about the problems I need to solve, and I'm going to write myself a list. And once I've solved these problems, then I'll be in a position to start.
Excellent. Okay, let's go to the next page. I don't know what this. Someone offers to send the missing. What's that? Missing footage. Right. Okay. So this is. Is this the kind of? I mean, we got our standard questions later on. Was this did this come to you like 3 a.m. or something, or is this just occur to you? Is this what we're seeing here with this?
The fact that it's written sort of diagonally at the corner of the page, something else at the time, or it was just one of those where I was like, oh, I need to write it down. I had this idea and then just scribbled it in the corner of the page, which is why I can't read the handwriting. Has to go through, I think, ordeal. Footage comes with no.
Don't you just love it though? Yeah, don't you just love it when you don't even know what you've written in? Okay, good. But this is all great stuff. This is all great stuff. And here you're getting a bit further into it. You're sort of getting into more details. And I don't want to get these look a little bit spoily, but this image at the top of the page, it says feedback on first 10,000 words. And I love the first 2 lines that says worked well to begin with, and then what the hell is going on? So tell us about. So you got to 10,000 words and you asked people for feedback. Is that how it worked?
I think I'd probably at this point. They did a thing. I can't remember what the disaster was at the time, but they did a books for me. Maybe it was books for Ukraine, because it wasn't 20. It was 2021, but something had happened where they were raising money, and they had the auction where you could like get lots and things, and you could get somebody to get some feedback. And so I put in a bid for some feedback, and as I was having the conversation, this is what I wrote down. So some of it is like worked well to begin with, and I think what the hell is going on was one of the things that worked well to begin with, because it's midst of the action and there's all this panic and strangeness, and then obviously the person who was giving me the feedback very kindly did what I like to call a crap sandwich. Is they start off with the good stuff, then they tell you what's not working, and then they say, but it was really good, and then you feel okay about the criticism.
Yes. One line here as well says first person works well, and you're writing first person present tense. Talk about that choice, because I think it works really well, because once you're in that opening, you're in her shoes and you are just as you are thinking what the hell is going on. So that's talk about the choice to do that. Yes,
it came from a couple of places. One of them was that in in order to be sort of honest with the reader, and obviously I'm always being dishonest with the reader because I know the ending when I'm writing it.
Yeah.
But they need to, the reader, I think, needs to feel at least that the narrator is being honest with them, or has a very good reason for not being. And so I thought that the only way to get that sort of connection and honesty was to have it that the character has the same level of knowledge at all times as the reader.
Yeah.
I do actually like books, you know, where you've got a narrator who's holding stuff back, like the book Thief Death doesn't tell you everything at the beginning, but the death gives you some hints, retelling something that happened to them many years ago, and they sort of say, oh, and it's going to get worse. But for this particular idea, the reader is absolutely on a par with the main character in terms of knowledge.
Oh, good. Fantastic. And then we've got more pages of notes there. And then what I note, there's the notebook that you were using, which I believe you got with you now. And then one of the final pictures, you've got your notebook, you got a printout of it, but in the middle there, you got a Kindle, and it looks like you've uploaded it from, I think, Scrivener onto your Kindle. So talk about that. Why did you do that?
So I wanted to experience the book as I read books. So I read a lot of ebooks. And the best way of being able to tell whether or not your book is good, as though it had been written by somebody else, which is always really hard. You can never fully erase everything that you've written. It seemed to me to be a pretty good way of doing it. And also, if you read it on the screen that you've written it on, you tend to skip a lot of words because you're so used to seeing it in that screen or in that font. This is fine, and then you sort of go through it too quickly. Whereas if you have it in a different setting, and I leave my office and go down to my lounge and read it like a proper book, then I'll be better able to understand how a reader would be experiencing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, because that is an absolutely fascinating insight to writing a first draft. Is there anything, I know you got another book coming and it's gone off to your editor now, and we might talk about that a bit later, but is there anything, what are the biggest lessons you learned from that first draft that you're going to carry across, that you carried across to the next draft, that that creation process?
Oh gosh, I don't know whether I learned more. In the first draft, I tend to power through quite quickly. I definitely think that for me, I'm a planner. Can't get involved. I know.
Hello, Coral. Coral's here, everyone. Yes, we got a cat.
I now can't see you. I'm just looking at the back of Coral's head. Yeah, I prefer to plan things because I like to be able to know before I start writing, know what's going to happen in that scene, because otherwise, if I just say, oh, I'm just going to feel it out and write as I go, I tend to just add in loads of filler and nothing is happening. Whereas if I start with, oh, this is what I'm going to, it means that my writing is much more focused and I make fewer mistakes as well, I think, that way. And I know that other people pants, and I'm not saying that that's a bad way of doing things. It's just that's how I've worked out is best for me.
Fantastic. Let's talk about that first flush of publication. This was your debut novel. You got, let's have a look. I mean, let's have a look here. You got an amazing review from the Times, the Financial Times there. Financial Times says, writing with verve, Shepherd delivers a creative tour de force. That must have been an amazing day. Reviews from, big papers. What was it like seeing those reviews come in?
Odd, because one of the sort of secrets, I suppose, of this is that you don't actually know whether yours out, so they don't give you any notice of anything. And I think that's particularly the case with crime. I don't know whether it's different with literary or something else, but with crime, it's a really closely guarded secret, to the point where my publicist was set the high res picture of the book, because they certainly didn't ask for it from me, so they have ways and means of keeping it all really secret, and it is really, really cool. And I would go down person every time. I've got them all. I've got 2 copies at least of every paper where it happens. So yeah, it's just brilliant. Like it, Tibbs.
Well, I mean, it's one thing being in the Times or the Financial Times, but how does it compare to being in the Redditch Standard? Now, being in the local paper is important, is it? When your friends, families, and neighbours, they kind of know that it's real, then, don't they?
Yeah, this is where I'm from. I used to deliver this paper, I had a paper round.
Oh, brilliant.
So yeah, it means a lot. And it was just really nice to get that in the paper, because I did hope as well that it might into Redditch Waterstones, if only out of curiosity to see what I've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing that comes with your first year of publication is you start sending you maybe to events and festivals and what have you. You were at the Harrogate Crime Festival, which is the big one in the UK. Now, my first question is, did you see any actual crime while you were there? Because I went there about 10 years ago and I saw a jewelry shop being robbed. As I was walking, I was walking back to the station. I heard this smash of glass, and these three blokes got in a car and drove off. Everyone had their phones with them, and they clocked them as they drove away. So I kept going to the station, good citizen that I am. You didn't see any actual crime there, and if not, what was the experience like for you?
I didn't see any crime, no, unless they were, my crimes. And I really like Harrogate. I in fact would like to go just on holiday there. It's such a nice place just to be. It's so beautiful, and they've got great food, great it's just lovely. In terms of what I saw some great events. I saw an event that was like AI meets like fiction, and Sarah Moorhead spoke in that, and Stuart Turton, and they were so funny. They were really, really hilarious. Like they genuinely had the place, like laughing. It was really, really great to see that, because obviously, Stuart Sen when he was at school, and Sarah is very funny, and they just had great banter. It was just really, really good. I saw Peter James speak. That was really interesting. Yeah, I do like going. I don't always just go to Harrogate. It's a lot of meeting up with people that you've only ever sort of chatted to on Twitter and so on.
But I mean, as well as those big names, you are meeting your peers there as well, though, aren't you? You're meeting the other debuts, or maybe people who've had one or two books come out. So that it's a great way to realize that you're not alone in this crazy thing that we do, and you do make some amazing friends as well. I also see that you're going to be at a thing called Chiltern Kills on October 5th with some big names there. Let's have a look. It's Ian Rankin, I've heard of him, Peter James, Sarah Pinborough, and Dempsey and Makepeace. That's amazing. So yeah, you're going to be on the Fresh Blood debut panel with, that's Louise Minchin off the telly, isn't it? So yeah, that's all for Centrepoint. So folks, if you want to help that out, that's chilternkills.com. So do check that out. So yeah, it's have you got used to having been in the stage of the courtroom, the arena of the courtroom? Are you happy on panels talking about your writing? Are you happy doing this, or is this terrifying for you?
This is more terrifying, because I feel obviously it's my creative wanted since I was a kid. There's that, and when I'm in court, I'm advocating for my client's case. I'm not worrying about whether people like me. I just want to know whether they agree with me, don't agree with me. It's way more honest in a sense, whereas I don't know what people are thinking when they're listening to me. Maybe they think I'm waffling on and I'm an idiot. Give you that feedback.
Definitely not. I also saw that you went on a writing retreat in North Wales, which is, I mean, we went there a few years ago. It is just beautiful. Also, Port Merion is there, speaking of the prisoner. So I wonder if that might have been an influence. But when you do a writing retreat in somewhere as beautiful as that, how do you get any work done? Do you just not stare out the window all the time?
A couple of years ago, actually, I went in 2020, and I did have a room that faced out onto a field where there were loads of sheep, and the sheep would just sort of run across the field, and the others would think, we need to also run across the field, and just change that. That was a bit distracting. So I would take myself off. They've got like a little sort of library area, and I'd go there where I couldn't look out the window as much. I mean, the thing is very sedentary, and there's only so long that you can just be sat down, sort of hunched over your laptop, And so it is good, I think, to be able to go out on walks. The other thing is it's very remote, so it's not like, you know, unless you want to be driving ages, there's not much really around there. I think there's nice walks, but other than that, like you should be sitting and writing. And there's something about that place where it's very a little bit Spartan in the way they set up the rooms and things, and it's just a really nice, calming writing environment. So I get stuff done, and there's a little bit of social pressure in a way to do something, because you all go for dinner in the evening together, and everyone says, "Oh, what have you done today?" So yeah, it's best to have something on the table.
Brilliant, fantastic. Folks, if you've got any questions for Laura, do pop them in the comments box there. But I'm just going to go through our regular questions, which we ask every guest. And this is the whole creative differences bit. So what's the small thing that has made a big difference to your creative process?
I don't know if it's a small thing, but it's certainly a bit random. And it was a decision I made when I was 21, which was to write an Agatha. I didn't, you know, I read loads of different books. I like historical, I like fantasy, I like crime. So it was just kind of, I'd love to write an Agatha Christie style novel. The reason it made a really big, up until that point, I'd been writing books as a teenager. I'd never been able to finish anything. The brilliant thing about a crime novel is that you know what the ending is going to be. This is the murderer. And even though probably a lot of a reason, I just felt that I couldn't be tied down to, oh, my protagonist must overcome the big baddie. Isn't that so obvious? Everyone's going to think that's going to happen. And even though that happens in almost every fantasy book, for whatever reason, to that sort of ending. Whereas once you get a crime book, the structure just massively helped me, because I'd read loads of Agatha Christie. Get all the suspects together, then somebody dies, then you investigate and question a load of people, and at the end you've got a solution. And stuff with that basic structure, it at least got me to the end. And once you finish the book and you know that you can finish it, the world's your oyster then, I think, when it comes to writing novels.
Brilliant answer, thank you. What's the thing that makes you think you're ready to start writing on a project? And I know we've already looked at your notebooks and we sort of covered this already, but is there one thing that makes you think, I know I can do this now?
For me, it tends to be I just can't bear to wait any longer. I am probably the most impatient person you've ever met. If I want to do something, I want to have done it yesterday. And so I really have to hold the reins before I'm ready, because otherwise you just write yourself into a cul-de-sac, or you go off on a path and then you're too boxed in where Pat would have thought of a better idea. Generally, I like to sort of know what's going to happen until 50%. Pretty well. I know vaguely what the ending is. But yeah, I'd say for me, it's just when I'm just bursting, I just put pen to paper.
Fantastic. How do you know when you're done? And specifically, I'm kind of thinking of the first draft there. So
first draft, it's when I've got to the end of the story. So because I sort of know where it's all going, it's quite easy for me to say, oh, I've got to the end of the story, even if it's a bit under on the word count. So my first drafts tend to come out about 80,000. And then through the editing process, they tend to go up more to 90, 100,000. But I'm done entirely with, you know, when I can send it to people, when I'm happy with it. I don't have as much of a problem with that as a patience thing. The sort of perfectionist side of me doesn't get in the way as much. I just need to get it out there. I need to know what people think. And I've got this ability almost to look at it with rose-tinted glasses. Whereas if I was to allow it to properly read the book, I would go, it's not ready. These are things I could fix. But because I'm like, no, I need to know what people think, I just go, oh, that's fine. They won't notice that plot hole. And then I get the edits back and obviously they notice it. So that's
Brilliant. Again, we may have covered this already, but how do you remember that idea you have at 3 a.m? Do you scroll it in the corner of a notebook, or how do you remember that great plot twist or whatever that comes in the middle of the night?
So one of two things happen. Either I think, I'll remember that. I take out my notes function in my phone and write it in the notes function. And then sometimes I wake up the next morning and then another thing that's happened for me in the past. So generally I sleep reasonably well, but as a teenager I had insomnia, and every now and then as an adult I have a night where I literally just don't sleep. And sometimes on those occasions I just sit and write because I think, well, I'm not going to sleep, so I may as well write. So yeah, that tends to be how I do it.
Very good. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made in your writing career?
Okay, so this is more of a theme. So the biggest mistake I've ever made is to get external. So, and the reason that's been such a big mistake is that I've lost so many hours that I could have been spent either having else or writing on refreshing my email inbox to see if somebody's going to respond to me, checking somebody's social media to see if they've just had in their inbox, or looking at Goodreads or NetGalley, which is just, don't do it. You know, I've had to stop doing that now. And so, yeah, so like, you know, we were talking about the nice reviews earlier. Of course, it's a difficult balance because I've got to appreciate that. I've got to celebrate those nice things that happen. But the moment you realize you're happy, you just end up in a spiral of, yeah, hoping that people that have never met you are going to give you some sort of happiness. And that's a really, really dark place to get into.
Very good. Very wise. What's the best happy accident of your writing career?
Yes, this is a bit of a weird one. So my mum has like a group of friends. I wouldn't call it a book club, but they're a group of friends where they will sort of recommend books to one another and we'll sort of share them around. And a bag of books that my mum had got from her friends, and in it I saw this cover, which is one of the most beautiful pieces of art I've ever seen. And it opens up and look, there's like a hole.
Oh, it's a die cut.
Yeah. In it. I was like, oh, I need to read this. It was just so beautiful. And I really, really love this book. It's The Watchmaker of Filigree Street, by steampunk Victorian. You know, it's just lovely. And the agent for Natasha Pulley, who was the person that I then decided to send my book to. And I think I probably would have always, you know, it starts with an A, it's at the beginning of the Writers and Artists Yearbook, but there's something about when you find an agent who represents something that you really, really love, that it just changes your sort of decision to submit to that person in the agency.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that you make a connection, don't you? And finally, is there a character or story that's swirling around in your mind that you want to write, but you're not ready to write yet?
Yes. Yeah, I have probably about 3.
Wow. Okay. What's holding you back? Why are you not ready
yet? One of them, I've got a sort of vague idea, but I haven't. It's just too vague. I need to get a better idea of it. Another one, the reason I've sort of sent a bit to my agent, and the idea is a bit political, and we need to see how things pan out in the sort of wider world before we go down that route. And then the other one is in a different genre to the one that I'm writing at the moment, dedicated any brain power to it, because I need to focus on the stuff that we're going to be doing in the near future.
Very good. Very good. Do we have any listener questions, Emily? You bring those up for us. Here we go. What have we got? So Laura Kettridge asks, do your characters have minds of their own, or are they strictly under your control? Do they ever get away from you, Laura?
So what I would say about this is that I'm a bit boring, and so of course they're under my control because they're in my brain. But yeah, I do understand a little bit when people say that, like, obviously they don't, you've thought it, even if it comes from the back of your mind, or sort of a bit of inspiration that you didn't really understand where it comes from. But there are times when in the writing of something you kind of get into that character's mindset more than you could when you were planning, and things start, yeah, they're under my control because it all comes from my brain ultimately.
Very good. Very good. Do we have another question, please, Em?
Well, we have a request.
Rachel Chapman says, "Give the ginger fur baby Coral a scratch behind the ears for me." Can we arrange that? Is that something we can arrange? Is Coral in the room now, Laura?
Coral has been shredding paper and ripping it the carpet because I want to. Coral is not in my good books right now, but I think she's wandered off to see if human 2 will feed her.
Okay, fair enough. There we go. Andrew Chapman. In the book, there is some antagonism towards Lila for defending a villain. Have you experienced this yourself?
Oh yeah, big time. I represented a woman who was convicted of stealing thousands and thousands of pounds from a very elderly and vulnerable woman who died at the end of the indictment period, and that's why the indictment period ended. And so I would sit in court where the family and understand hated my client, would say horrible things about her. She was photographed by the press coming into court. She was sentenced, quoted me, all of that sort of stuff. And when you're addressing a jury, you have to look at everybody on the jury, make eye contact with them. It's the classic sort of things you would be taught when you do public speaking. And in this particular case, I looked at one member of the jury trying to say why my client should be acquitted, and she just turned away. She couldn't bear to hold eye contact with me. Well, I have experienced that. Yeah.
Wow. Brilliant question. Thank you.
And
Andrew.
I just sort of thought, I don't know whether I've won this case when that.
Yes, you have to wonder. Is it going to be a split jury? Right. Finally, what's bringing you joy at the moment? This can be a book, movie, TV show, music, game, whatever makes you happy when you're not writing. Coral the cat, obviously. But what else?
Cat. So a TV show that I love, and it's a book I love as well, is this. So Horses. So I just watched the latest episode. I love that series. I love the books. I've read them twice. I also love watching the series, even though they're different, because you get so much more of what's going on inside of the characters' heads. So one of the funniest characters is Roddy Ho. Now, the acting, and I think he's just such a fantastic job. Can be the bits of the book where you hear what he's thinking, and that you can't do that in a TV program. And that is it's just so funny. So I love Slow Horsing. Another TV program I've loved this year is Three Body Problem. It made me weep and sob my heart out. It's really good. I love that kind of sci-fi where it's not just sci-fi, it's human stories. And so the really cool thing as well about being published is you get sent advanced review copies or proofs. And so recently, one was A Trial in 3 Acts by Guy Morpus. That's coming out in March of next year. I really liked that one. Again, written by a barrister. Just really immersive and great, and just a really complicated, fun mystery. And then the next one, I've got a physical proof for this one. Seeley. And this book, and this is obviously a compliment, has a character in it that I don't know whether I've hated a literary character more. I couldn't wait for them to get their comeuppance. That was just, and the other thing I've watched recently, which I've never watched before, was Handmaid's Tale. I wouldn't describe it necessarily as a harrowing watch, but it is insanely gripping.
What was the? I think you cut off there. What was the yellow book you showed us there? I missed that. I don't know if that was me cutting out or you.
Scenes from a Tragedy by Carol Haley. Again, March next year that comes out.
Brilliant. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay. Any more questions then? How have this is from Rachel. How have your peers responded to your writing, if they have, that is?
Really, really positively. I was quite shocked by this. There are, I guess, some in-jokes in my book as well. Like I've used a couple of names from people people that I did, but I just sort of was amusing myself when I was writing this book. But really positively, a lot of people have said that I've really captured you're on your feet and a judge is shouting at you, or when a client won't speak to you and all of that sort of stuff. So they've responded. My friend recently has said that he found it really stressful to read the book because he pictured me as Lila. He said every time he opened up the book, he was thinking, what stupid thing has Laura done now?
That's a big problem though, isn't it? Where people can't separate the author from what the action is, which is why I'm still terrified to write a really intimate sex scene or murder. You know, people are just going to assume the worst. Okay, let's we've had that one. Yep, thank you. Lovely. Sorry, okay. Andrew says reading the book made me regret sharpening my teeth. Thank you, Andrew. We'll discuss that off air. Oh, Gavin, GB Ralph says, did you adopt initials for your pen name to get distance from your other work? So obviously, you know, you're in a very high profile job. So was that always going to be the way that you'd have a slightly different name to your professional name?
No, I wasn't too worried about that. The reason I had to go with the initials is because there's another fantastic author called Laura Shepherd Robinson who writes really wonderful historical thrillers, and you know, she's always going to, you know, when it comes to SEO searches and things like that, she's always going to be at the top. And so just to distance myself from her, I took the decision to use the initials. I did have a whole process as to what I was going to take as a pseudonym. My mum's maiden name is Chambers, and we thought, oh, Laura Chambers sounds quite a whole legal thing. But in the end, my mum put her foot down and was like, no, your name is your name. So yeah, you've got to do what your mum tells you, haven't you?
Yes, it's true. Yeah, it is absolutely true. Brilliant. Thank you. Any more questions then? We got any more for any more? Are we good?
Not yet.
We are good. Excellent. Well, I'll just give you a quick rundown of what is bringing me joy this month. And guess what? Slow Horses on my list as well. Wednesday nights on Apple TV are an absolute joy. We've got Slow Horses and Bad Monkey, which is based on the book by Carl Hiaasen. Like you, Laura, I've been reading the Slow Horses books. I've been reading them after each series, which is so it feels like the best tie-in novelization ever. But again, that kind of getting that internal monologue of that eternal, you know, of getting inside characters like Roddy Ho and what have you is just fantastic. And he's a terrific writer. And Bad Monkey is just so much fun. I went through a phase of reading a lot of Carl Hiaasen, and I sort of stopped going through that phase. So I'm going to have to get back in again. Another book I'm reading, non-fiction I'm reading, is Hope I Get Old Before I Die by David Hepworth. David Hepworth used to run Q Magazine, Word Magazine, and he does a brilliant series of books, music essays. And this is about old rockers. Like when Paul McCartney came on at Live Aid in 1984, or was it 5? He was something like 43 years old, and they all thought he was completely over the hill and the granddad of rock and roll. And now, you know, the idea of the Rolling Stones still touring in their 80s was a joke, and yet here we are. And it's a series of essays about those old rockers and what's happened to them. Absolutely fascinating, really, really good. I went to the launch for that as well, which was really good fun. My 5 a.m. read, because regular listeners will know that I read a lot of fiction at sort of 4:35 a.m. when I wake up and can't get back to sleep, and it's the best time to read for me because there's no one else in the house, there's no one sending me emails or messages or anything. So I'm currently reading Kate Atkinson's A God in Ruins, which is a sort of sequel to Life After Life, which is the one where the protagonist Ursula keeps dying and being reborn, and this focuses on her younger brother and his life before and after the war. It's told in non-chronological order, and she's just one of our best writers. She's absolutely brilliant, and she's one of those people I read and just think, how did she do that? She's so good. And in terms of music, being an old man, I am listening to David Gilmour's new album Luck and Strange, which is just fantastic. The last track on this, which is called Scattered, has a kind of guitar solo in it that's up there with Comfortably Numb, and I'm listening to that on the loop at the moment. So that is what's giving me joy at the moment. Let's have a look. Oh, got a lovely, here we go. Rachel, I just want to reiterate how much I enjoyed Laura's book, and she didn't kill off my favorite character, Mr. Stay. Well, what can I say? I mean, sorry, Rachel, can you ever forgive me? I think I know the answer to that. Look, what's coming next, Laura? What's next from you?
Handed in the second draft of my second novel, which is as yet untitled, and also a bit up in the air, I guess, in terms of whether it is going to be my second novel. And it's still a speculative legal thriller. And all this is the one we go for, is that it's rather than it being about a barrister, this time it's about a jury. So these people that I've been to persuade for years, now I've sort of wanted to get into the shoes of the jurors and wonder what happens when the door closes and we don't know. So yeah.
Brilliant. And will it have that kind of speculative angle to it too, or will this be more grounded in the real world? Or
it's more grounded in the real world, but it does take place chemical attack. And so it is kind of like a bit of an alternative, like what would happen if this was to happen. But yeah, it's not as speculative as the first one.
Brilliant. Well, we're all still really looking forward to it. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to put you backstage for a minute because I just a few notices that I want to run through, but we'll bring you on at the end to say goodbye. So thank you very much. Say goodbye, everyone, to Laura just for this second. There we go. Okay, so it's just me. And before we wrap up, I just want to do a quick mention of the Green Room. So twice a month, I run live sessions on Zoom where you can ask me questions about the craft of writing, your work in progress, or the business of publishing. These sessions are fun and informal and chatty. Now, I thought they'd run for about half an hour. They've all been about an hour long so far. We really get into it. You can send me questions in advance. They'll be recorded live and saved on Ko-fi for exclusive access to Green Room supporters. So yeah, I've really enjoyed them. So I'm just going to pop a link to that in the comments as well, just so you can all check it out if you want, and I'll put that in the comments below as well. There's no long-term commitment, so with Ko-fi you can just support for a month or as long as you like, pop in and out, whatever works for you. My goal is to be able to give supporters advice that will make a real difference to their writing and career, because the way I see it, having worked in this industry as a salesperson, bookseller and author for over 30 years, I've made every mistake, so you don't have to. The next two Green Room sessions are Wednesday, the 9th of October at 8 p.m. British Summer Time, and then Wednesday, the 30th of October, 8 p.m. GMT. See what I did there? Now, just say they won't always be on Wednesday nights. Basically, we all sort of check out what's going to be best time for us. But yeah, so do come along. I hope to see you there. Also, just a quick note that I'm going to be at FantasyCon in Chester, which is on October 11th to 13th. I'm going to be doing panels all weekend for that. So if you're there, do come along and say hello. I've also been confirmed for the MCM Comic Con at the Excel Centre in London at the end of October. I've got books and you can buy them. So from all good bookstores, or if you want to buy them direct from me, you can go to the Village Bookshop there, wishesofwoodville.com/the/Village Bookshop. You can find it there. There's a link at the bottom there, and there'll be a link in the notes as well. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of Creative Differences. A very special guest. Thank you to my guest, Laura. We'll just bring her back. Let me get rid of that. Laura, thank you so much for coming along today. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Also, I nearly forgot, just to flag up next month's special guest, we've got the wonderful Zoe Richards coming on the 28th of October, 8 p.m. GMT. She's the author of Garden of Her Heart, which is out now. She's the host of the Right Damn It podcast. I think that's how you pronounce it. She's also a coach with more than 35 years experience working on mindset. Now, her book, Garden of Her Heart, has been described as a hug in a book and the perfect holiday read. And I can tell you, Zoe is a wonderful human being, and you are not going to want to miss this one. So I hope you can join us live. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, things like ratings, reviews, likes, shares, these all help massively with those AI algorithms. Now, I know some of you came late. So do you want to hear my jingle? I've got a jingle. Do you want to hear my jingle again? Do you want to hear my jingle again? Want to hear that? Well, you're going to hear it anyway. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Love it. Thank you, Dom. Thanks for the jingle. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. And until next time, happy writing, reading, and being different. Bye, everyone. Goodbye. Let's do that jingle one more time.